For over 1,000 years, Western civilization has been stuck in a dark age of sexual repression and misinformation. We get an oversexed overload from the media, but nothing in the way of honest, helpful, practical information on sex and how to do it right. That sucks, and I'm fucking sick of it. My name's JV Altheras, and I've spent a couple decades learning everything I can about how to have amazing sex and more of it. Not in a classroom like a lot of people who talk about sex. I learned it all in the gutter, right where Mom told me I'd end up. It's my mission to bring an end to the sexual dark age with brutally honest talk and education on all aspects of sex and sexuality, in an atmosphere that will keep you entertained without treating you like an idiot. Shara and I are not doctors. Certifiable, perhaps, but not certified in any way. And that means we don't have to talk about vaginas and penises to maintain academic credibility. You got a problem with a vagina? Call a gynecologist. You want to learn more about pussies and cocks and how to make them happy? You've come to the right place. Ending the Sexual Dark Age is now sponsored by the internet's most trusted name in adult toys. A happy pussy likes to play more often. AdamandEve.com is offering you guys half off on your choice of thousands upon thousands of vibrators and dildos and cock rings and strap-ons, nipple clamps, porn DVDs, butt plugs, pocket pussies, anything else you can imagine to either get yourself off or have some fun with your playmate. As always, we highly recommend making sex toys part of your sex life, and right now, AdamandEve.com is only asking for one chance to impress you. They're offering an awesome deal in support of ending the sexual dark age, and the whole thing goes a little like this. By typing Dark Age, all one word, for the offer code at checkout, you will get 50% off the most expensive item in your cart, with a few exceptions, free shipping, 3 free porn DVDs, and a sexy free mystery gift. Free DVDs are selected randomly and added to your order before they ship. AdamandEve.com is willing to damn near pay you to get off. So stop by, enter DARKAGE at checkout, and proceed to collect on an awesome deal. Or just follow one of the links on sexualdarkage.com. And if you like surfing on your smartphone, be sure to check out Adam and Eve's new mobile site. Yes, you too can buy dildos right from your iPhone now, thanks to Adam and Eve. Welcome to episode 57.
Welcome.
Wow, for once you didn't have much to say right out of the gate there.
I'm kind of quiet today.
Yeah, I know. What are you trying to keep from getting in trouble? You know that's not going to work.
I know. It never works. I try. I really do. I
know
wake
you
up
do.
in the morning and I say, I'm going to be a good girl.
Oh, I forgot to take out the xylophone.
You did? Well, that's okay.
And
really...
under the heading of making sure that people who may be newer listeners understand what the point here is, for a long time we used a hotel desk bell to mark whenever Shara blushed uncontrollably.
That someone was kind enough to send to us. Thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, the original one we had, then someone was kind enough to send us a clever bell to use, and the feedback we got was that it was a little bit shrill. So I have I've gotten a Fisher-Price xylophone that will now commemorate only when Shara blushes and tries to hide it. Because if I made a noise or activated a musical instrument every time she blushed while we were recording this, it would be more like a score than an occasional, score or a soundtrack than an occasional note that something was going on.
Fisher-Price would just be so proud to know that it's being used so well.
Oh, I'm sure they probably would. That's why I have to say, and there's nothing to stop me. There's nothing that can stop me from saying I bought this Fisher-Price xylophone to make noise with every time my slut blushes.
Moving on.
I think we've got a Pavlovian response here. You started blushing when I rang the xylophone.
Hi, everybody. Awesome. Let's just move on now.
Not only is the bar for the key or from the note of B a red, so it's B for blush, and the bar is red on the xylophone.
That's great.
As Shara begs me with her eyes, please just change the subject, Master.
Yes, moving on.
So we have a variety of kink-related questions that we have gathered together from listeners from over the past few months.
Yes, I'm finally catching up on FetLife and all the other questions.
Yeah, so by catching up, we mean we are catching up, taking the questions and putting them all in one place so that we can effectively select from them for shows. Yes, we have plenty of material for upcoming shows.
Plenty.
So this first one is from Mystic Writer on FetLife. Writing, I'm not sure if this exists or not, but is there a fetish that involves women liking inexperienced men and teaching them aspects of sex? If so, is there a term for that? So I had to put on my research hat on this one, and I always love questions that make me put on my research hat.
I do too.
So I did talk with our medical advisor. I did some research on my own to make sure we covered the bases. I talked with the medical advisor. He consulted the DSM-4, which is important to note. DSM-4 only covers things which are considered psychiatric disorders, and not all paraphilias are considered psychological or psychiatric disorders necessarily.
Okay.
And kind of what we came up with was that this type of thing seems like a very light version of femdom.
Okay.
It does definitely ring the bell, so to speak, of a role reversal in a patriarchal society.
Okay.
A role reversal.
I would agree with that.
So yeah, patriarchy kind of dictates that the more experienced man will always be teaching the inexperienced girl. And that's a reversal of that, which can be enticing for a variety of reasons on its own. And I think we also have mixed into that as part and parcel of the sexual dark age of Western civilization, dare I say the entire world. We have a situation where virtually no one gets true hands-on experience and education. And, I got some of that myself, and I was extremely thankful for it. Not just for the good times that were had, but for the good start. It got me off to a running start, basically. So I think it's perfectly natural for either men or women to kind of yearn for that, because so much, especially in the early stages of our sexuality or our exploration of our sexuality, so much of what we feel because of the sexual dark age is doubt. Mm-hmm. And feeling like we couldn't possibly be doing anything right, and it's the concept, I think, of having someone to teach you allows you to alleviate that doubt. Someone who is taking on the role of a teacher expects you to be inexperienced. Mm-hmm. And I think that relieves a lot of that could possibly relieve a lot of the mental stress.
And I'd agree with that. In my past relationships, left it up to the man to decide, what was going to happen to me within safety, of course. But even in my early stages of sexuality, other than when I was playing with myself, which was my own comfort zone, and I knew what made me happy, I left it up to the man to please me. And I think that was part of my problem was okay. I was going to different people, and maybe they weren't that much more experienced than I am, or they didn't explore because they just said, okay, this is where it goes. This is what I do, and that's about it. It wasn't until really, that I really, really had so many orgasms besides giving them to myself.
Pleasure to be of cervix.
And seriously, though, really, it wasn't until I really see it. It just is astounding to me because I think about all those other people out there who really don't know how to or haven't had the chance to experiment with sex with somebody who really knows what they're doing. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like my sex was bad, but it wasn't as good as it could be. And why should you settle for less when you could be having a really good time?
Oh, absolutely. And then we also, we do tend in Western society, well, at least Western society and at least to some extent Japanese society, we tend to fetishize the schoolgirl relationship, or fetishize schoolgirls. We tend to fetishize teachers to a certain extent. From what we see in popular culture anyway. I don't have any data to support any, general tendencies of the population or anything, but at least what we see in popular culture tends to show us male teachers wanting to fuck girls in schoolgirl uniforms, mm-hmm. and teenage boys wanting to fuck their hot female teachers. And I think there's plenty of that going back and forth. I think in our actual sexual tendencies, things are much more of a two-way street than that, but that's how we tend to see it in culture, and also, well, at least in porn, which is a reflection of culture, but certainly not scientifically based or a barometer of anything other than what porn producers believe their audience wants.
And I think a couple of things that when I think back about my relationships is when you first start off in a relationship and you have that physical attraction to each other, you're like, well, this is really nice and this is exciting. But as a relationship progresses in the years, how much fun are you having? How much variety is there? Does it wear off? Are you still sexually attracted to each other, or does some of that wear off? And some of it wore off for me because there wasn't a variety, I think. And also there's the situation of BDSM. BDSM is great, but we have more than that between you and I. It's not just BDSM. There's always something exciting in our sexual life. And if we're too tired or we're exhausted or whatever, you have to work on that. You can't just say, oh, you know what, I'm just too tired. And once you get to that point where you're playing around again and you get into, obviously we've had some busy times at the business, but when we really take the time, it's always exciting. It's never a dull moment. And it doesn't have to be BDSM related. This is for anybody out there that is having a sexual relationship. It's about keeping it going, and it's about having fun with it.
Right. And there's always value in teaching whoever you're playing with how to please you.
Right.
So, right. That is an aspect of teaching that never gets old.
Right.
But yeah, so as far as what we've been able to find out there in psychiatry and out there on the internet, nothing really that gives this particular predilection a name or raises it to the level of a fetish, except perhaps in the light of a hot for teacher fetish. But certainly lots of reasons that a guy, especially a young guy, might enjoy these kinds of fantasies.
Like a femdom situation, like you said.
Yeah, very light femdom. Mm-hmm. The female dominating as an educator. As opposed to hardcore domination, then it's an educator is not going to humiliate. Okay. So I think that's one of the clear places where the fantasies would kind of diverge.
Okay.
So next up, we have a female listener named NM, or with the initials NM. That's not her name. How boring would that be? Somebody's parents would have to be slapped. And anyway, she writes, "I'm in a bit of a predicament, as I am a pretty shy person when I first meet people, and I'm also a virgin at 24. This is probably because I've been surrounded by girls most of my life, and I haven't built up the confidence to approach guys about not just sex, but relationships, nor do I seem to have great skills with dealing with situations when guys have approached me in the past. I would very much like to explore the world of BDSM to the point where I can't stop dreaming about it, which is leaving me very sexually frustrated, and there's only so much you can do on your own to satisfy yourself. I have 2 friends who are into the scene and are happy to take me to a munch if I'm keen. I have tried to experiment on my own, but I'm running out of ideas and toys. I want to ask them if they would play with me. It doesn't have to be anything to do with the act of sex. I'm interested in bondage and testing some of my limits with pain. They are people that I would trust with this, so my question is, do you think I need to have sex before I explore?"
Absolutely not.
Nope.
No.
A resounding no. Hell no.
And part of that, I'll go back to, she's 24 years old, and if you haven't had sex yet and you're not sure that you want to or whatever, I say you have to be sure about that. I want to always make sure that somebody, when they decide to have sex, it's because they want to, so that they enjoy that moment the very first time, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, and especially, sometimes phrases help us, target in on things. You should never have sex because you feel like you should in order to accomplish some goal or something like that. Mm-hmm. And also, just to put this in a little bit of perspective, there's all kinds of sexual exploration that happens before for females, the breaking of the hymen or, their first penetration. We have fondling, foreplay, heavy petting, first, second, and third base, of course, oral, sometimes anal. There's so many things that people do. And I think to an extent, and I've said this before, I'll probably still be saying it when I'm an old man, I think we overvalue virginity. I think we put it up on a pedestal. And I think for some, I don't want to say it's totally unimportant. I certainly am not saying that everyone should just get rid of it as soon as possible. That's what we generally expect from guys, but not all guys are like that. And then, of course, in our patriarchal society, we teach women they're not supposed to enjoy sex and not supposed to have sex, and we teach the boys they're supposed to be fucking everyone.
Well, the biggest thing is I don't think anyone should feel guilty if they do have sex, and I believe that, you have to use your precautions in terms of making sure that you're safe, having safe sex, and there are people out there that still carry that guilt around in them, and if you are one of those people, I feel that you just have to know that when you're ready to do this, to have sex, then have it, but have it with no regrets. But I do not think to get into BDSM and have some kind of playtime with somebody else has to involve sex at all. And I think going to the munches with them would be very good because it'll allow you to meet other people in the scene and you'll get an idea if it's something for you or not for you.
Yeah, and I can give a couple of relevant examples from my personal experience. One, there have been many occasions where I played out a scene with a submissive and my dick stayed in my pants. Especially, no, I don't want to say especially with more experienced players because I think that's an unfair standard. But certainly some people are more able to separate the psychological thrill of BDSM from the physical pleasure better than others. And I am one of those people who is able to very much separate it. But the point is that a lot of people who play in the BDSM scene do not require sexual gratification. And especially depending on your comfort level, with these people, I would suggest that, well, you seem like you're very comfortable from what you say about them, but I would suggest having kind of an additional conversation. If your hymen is something you are concerned about preserving, there are certain types of play that even if you're being non-sexual, you should probably avoid. Not a whole lot of pussy spankings. No dildos that aren't, in your hand. Because someone else is not going to be able to, feel the pressure put against your hymen and that sort of thing. So that's a decision for you to make and a conversation to have if you want to, if your hymen is intact and you want to preserve it.
And I had that experience I had talked about, I believe, once before on here when I went to New York, paddles, and it was to celebrate a wedding. And when I went, I was with another couple that, that traveled there to go to the wedding reception to celebrate. And while we were there was a gentleman there that was extremely well known for single tail, and he had his submissive come up and ask if they could play with me, and didn't know them. I just know that he was really well known and was in the community for being very good at what he does. So I went to the master that I was with and his submissive, and they agreed. I was blindfolded. My clothes were all on, but I'll tell you what, I came and came and came. He was so good at it. And then she used like a little rabbit fur glove to rub me down afterwards. Again, I was still fully clothed. I mean, there wasn't a lot there, but I was still fully clothed. And
all the naughty bits were covered.
And he came up to me when he was done and he said, "Did you hear the person behind you coming in the audience?" And I said, "No," and I didn't know that there was an audience. When he took the blindfold off and I turned around, everybody was there. I mean, it was crowded. It was unbelievable. But I was so having fun with that moment. And again, no sex was involved. So, have a good time.
Yeah. And one other quick, I'm sure I mentioned this at some point on the show, but I myself was getting into bondage play before I lost my virginity. I figured out how to talk women into letting me tie them up before I figured out how to talk them out of their clothes.
I'd say imagine my shock, but no one's shocked on that one.
Well, kind of a point of pride, actually.
Yes, I know. And you should be.
So is there anything else you would like to say about the question of virginity and BDSM?
I just think that, we covered it pretty well, and I'd like to hear back from her how her experience goes. I think that going to the munch would be great for her since she seems to trust these people. It sounds like they're people that you've known for a while. So I would definitely go to some munches and would consider playing with them, just like JV said, set up some ground rules for yourself.
Yep.
And a safe word.
Next, what's that?
And a safe word.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have, I would suggest going back and listening to most of our key bondage-oriented shows, especially episode 17. There's another one, I don't remember exactly which episode, but we talk about safe words specifically, especially how to keep safe words from giving you a false sense of security. Because among people who have been in the scene or the lifestyle for a very long time, opinions widely vary on the value and effectiveness of safe words.
I agree.
So, the most effective thing is until you are very well established with someone as a play partner, to not do non-consensual play. Because in every every aspect of BDSM outside of non-consensual or resistance play, no is sufficient.
Right.
And it is what you are going to reflexively say.
Right.
So I would say keep no or stop as your safe word.
Exactly.
Until you are established with somebody and you want to, and if you are established with somebody and you want to do non-consensual or resistance play.
Right.
Next up, we have Anika, hope I'm pronouncing that right, from the sexualdarkage.com website, who submits a question about constructive criticism for submissives as follows. She writes, constructive criticism. I have always struggled with this. Master tells me that I need to do something differently, and I have this inner struggle that first I close up, then I get angry, and when I have called down, I realize that he is right anyway.
Sound familiar?
Yes. Does that sound a little familiar, Shara?
Oh, does it sound familiar? I mean, like, we know. I mean,
boy,
I know
Anika, did you ask the right submissive this question? But let me continue.
Yes, please.
She asks, why do I go through all of the emotions to get where I will end up getting anyway? Is it because in the past constructive criticism was delivered incorrectly to me? Do I think that I have that big of an ego that I think I am always right? Is it an inner struggle that submissives have? I have spoken to some well-versed submissives, and most of them struggle with this as well, so I know I am not alone. Insight and constructive advice would be helpful, please, and thank you. And one more thing, as a submissive, should we always take criticism as constructive? So I'm gonna open this up to Shara. I have certainly plenty to say, but I'm gonna open this up to Shara because she is chomping at the bit, shall we say, to start talking about this.
Well, first of all, is it because in the past constructive criticism was delivered incorrectly to me? I'd say absolutely. Of course. Now, all joking aside, I struggle with it too. And many in my submissive group that I have all struggle with it. So I would have to say that I don't think it's an ego thing, but more of a wanting to please our masters. And when they're coming to us and we let you down, a master down, it's, it makes us angry that we're being, corrected. Like, why isn't that good enough? Or why am I being picked on for this? And I too know that JV is right. I can't believe I'm admitting this on air, but I am. But I will say, yes, he is right. So, and I still fight it every single time. And I'm working at it, but it is very difficult. And I wish I knew the answer. In fact, I really think it'd be an interesting question to bring to our medical advisor, because honestly, a lot of the submissives in my group struggle with this all the time. It's like, okay.
Well, yeah, and this certainly does not have to be the last that we discuss this on the show. And
I have to say, there are some of it that I think could be somewhat ego related, is like, what? I was doing that right. What's wrong with you? Why are you telling me that?
Certainly.
Even though we know later on, we go, yeah, he was right, And then, so there's a little bit of that you're struggling with that I think is difficult. But I try to get better at it and come to you sooner. I don't know. You tell me, am I doing better at that when...
You are doing better at that, yes, but it is a struggle.
Yeah, it is. But I do come to you and say...
Because you do have that reflexive, what the fuck do you mean? When I have to correct you. And I try to be...
You took it wrong. What do I...
Yeah.
There's always that. They took it wrong, of course. No, you misunderstood me. Sure I did.
Right, because I misunderstood what I wanted.
Okay, well, sometimes it's...
You see how that works?
Yeah, I see. Yes.
It doesn't hold a lot of water when you hold it up and look at it in the daylight.
So... keep on working at it. It is a struggle. But I do have a writing that I keep at the apartment. And as soon as I walk into the bedroom and into the closet to put my things away, first thing I do is to read it, to put my head in a better mind place. However, I still sometimes fight it faster than I think about it. I try to think before I react, but sometimes, when we know we're right, we just have to fight it a little bit better.
But see, that gets to one of the core questions in dominance and submission. If you are doing something that does not make your dominant happy, or specifically makes your dominant unhappy, could you possibly consider yourself to be right?
Of course not.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that a good answer? I think that's a good answer.
There's a little logic bomb for you.
You
can't be right if your dominant is unhappy.
Correct. Very good. I agree with you. How's that going? See, just like that.
Well, you have to
Anika?
not sound fake about it. I mean, you have to do better than that.
Well, I'm doing that because no one can see my face right now. If they could see my face, they'd see the genuine look in my face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The genuine look in your face.
No, all joking aside, it is something that we all, the majority of us struggle with. I shouldn't say all, but I think the majority of us struggle. I can say that in my submissive group, all of us struggle with it. And we do work on it as a group. And when we meet, we talk about it. It's one of the first things that we talk about is what made your dominant, what did you do that made your dominant unhappy? And, you know, that's usually one of the first things that comes up for all of us is, well, he wanted this and I didn't do it the right way. And I'm not talking about, you know, he wants your hair in pigtails and you put them in pigtails, but you didn't braid them. Even though that's, you know, he didn't say that he wanted that, but then he comes out, you know, I'm not talking about somebody that's abusive.
Right.
I'm talking about just genuine master, dominant that wants you to do something and you just don't want to do it the way he wanted you to do it. So we all struggle with it. So don't obsess about it, but try to maybe work on it a little bit.
Yeah, and I will say, I've got lots to say on this, as you might imagine.
No, I can't imagine.
The first thing I should probably say is that this is something dominants struggle with too. When we, you know, by and large, when we are trying to accomplish behavior modification in our submissives, we want to be successful. We want to be stern enough to get the job done generally without being assholes. And that can be kind of a moving target, you know, and so it is, to her part of the question, is it because in the past constructive criticism was delivered incorrectly to me? I would say that's probably certainly a part of it, because even the best intentioned dominants get it wrong sometimes. I certainly get it wrong sometimes. And it can be a challenge where, as a dominant, I feel like if I want to accomplish constructive criticism, you know, it kind of comes down to behavior modification without punishment. If we had to define constructive criticism in BDSM, I think that's probably a good definition of it. So in order to accomplish that without punishment, as a dominant, you kind of have to deliver your criticism in a way that is absolutely neutral. You can't show the slightest hint of disappointment or frustration or being upset, because all of those things tend to send submissives off down the fucking rabbit hole. Look at you laughing. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Because I feel so bad for you sometimes, because it's like, and I'm going to be honest here, and I'm just going to shed one little story. Yesterday, I was a bad girl, and
you were indeed.
I know. And you said, get over here. And now, normally, I would fight the get over here. I would like, but I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I did kind of start that, but I followed up with can I do it this way instead, because to still, you know, make a point. But getting corrected when you know you're wrong is so difficult, because you just want to immediately sometimes take it back, or you want to fight that you're not wrong. You want to stand your ground and say, no, I'm right on this. I knew yesterday that I was wrong. Okay. Although I had definitely my own backup to say reasons why, but I tried not to until you brought up certain points with me to respond to those points that you brought up. But I knew that my behavior was wrong yesterday. No matter what, I knew my behavior was wrong. So I felt like yesterday was a move in the right direction for me, because I typically would have probably argued for a while about coming over there.
Oh, no. Typically a situation like yesterday would have landed you into some long-term punishment.
Yes. So I felt like, you know, it was, and understand that I was in a very frustrated moment. So it wasn't an easy situation, because typically that's where things can really go awry.
Well, and that's another challenge for a dominant, because, you know, there is, you want to try and be understanding when your submissive is frustrated about things that don't have anything to do with you.
Right.
But, I mean, you know, don't get any on me.
Right.
You know, I mean,
right.
I can support you when you're being frustrated, unless that support turns into you thinking you can mouth off to me and just be generally disobedient.
Right. But you were very good about it yesterday, you know, but it was one of those frustrating moments for me. So I will say that, you know, if you can catch yourself when you're getting corrected, or being asked to explain yourself, if you can catch yourself and check yourself beforehand, as quickly as possible.
Oh, yes. From the dominance perspective, the faster you as a submissive can realize something went horribly wrong, and the faster you can say, Master, I am so sorry, the better.
Right. And we've been together a long time. So I'm just now really getting better at it because, in the beginning years, there was the fun that you have with the BDSM and the relationship is all new. Years that could go on, because BDSM, there's so many different things that you could do in the relationship that it can carry on for quite a long time with some fun times. So it's not always a frustration point. But I'm just now, in all the years that we've been together, trying to improve on that better and better and better. So I had a long road. So I don't know how long you've been doing this and how long you've been with your master, but as far as I'm concerned, keep working on you. And my biggest concern for a lot of submissives, because we've had some in our group, is he a good dominant, / master? Because some are abusive. And it does not sound like that in this case because she sounds a lot like me and he's probably a lot like you.
Yeah, so one thing to consider is that, your dominant may be struggling with how to achieve constructive criticism without punishment. Because, loving, nurturing dominants do not generally get off on punishment. We want it to be a last resort. We just want our submissives to just do as they're fucking told, without all kinds of hullabaloo. I mean, we want the fun, we want the kinky time to be fun time. We don't want it to be punishment time. We don't want it to be correction time. It certainly can be. But, most dominants, I think, given the option, would rather have the kinky time be happy fun time.
I think we do too, but it's just, we have a little bit of an ego too. So some of it's ego and some of it's like poutiness. Like, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to have to do this or whatever the case may be. But let us know and how it's going for you because I definitely, want to hear about it. And
actually, there's a couple other things I want to bring into this because I think there are a couple other aspects, especially, and this is a female submissive with a male dominant. Mm-hmm. And I think this really kind of especially applies to female submissives with male dominance. But to a large extent in Western culture, feminism teaches you that you're doing it wrong if you let a man give you orders.
True.
So there is that struggle that's probably going to be present in most modern women to some extent or another. We actually spent an entire episode talking about that, episode 42, dominance and sexual submission. I'm sorry, feminism and sexual submission. So you may want to give that a listen too because we go in depth into some more of those concepts. But so I mean that certainly probably plays into it. The fact that somewhere subconsciously, the fact that a man is correcting your behavior, you have been taught systematically that you're not supposed to respond well to that.
And in today's world, we have a lot of people that either the woman owns her own business or she's partners in a business or she's in a head position, a management position at a business. So you are expected during the day at your job to be the boss. And now all of a sudden you have to, come home and he's the boss. So that is something that women struggle with a lot.
Yeah. So I think that's about all I have to say on that particular topic. How about you?
That's about it. So just hang in there. And if there's something more specific you want us to answer on after you've listened to the episodes, let us know.
Yep, absolutely. And for our last listener question for today, we have a woman whose initials are CP who messaged me on Facebook. And she says, so, after much struggle, my husband is being more dom in our home life and the bedroom. My ass is getting spanked, whipped, and fucked, and I'm happy with the progress.
Woohoo.
I'm even more surprised that he asked me if there's a book he could read to better understand the mindset and how to do it properly. Do you have a book in mind that covers this? I've listened to most of your shows, but he's not that kind of thinker. He understands better when he reads. Any help would be great. I want to strike while the iron's hot. Well, luckily for you, actually, we have... Back in episode 28, we did address a very similar question, so you may want to go back and listen to episode 28 if you have not picked that up in the past. For that episode, there are two particularly good books that are kind of, they're very well known in the BDSM community as a couple of the best books for newbies out there. One of them is called Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns.
Love that book.
And the other is called The Loving Dominant.
And I like that book too.
Yeah, Screw the Roses kind of focuses a little bit more. I mean, it definitely focuses on psychology, but it focuses very heavily on practice. The Loving Dominant focuses a little bit more on the psychology. We also did a couple of episodes on how to be a sexual dominant. We have not followed those up with a couple episodes on how to be a sexual submissive, which may have helped Anika a little bit, and we do need to get around to doing that.
I agree.
Maybe once you expand your support group a little bit, maybe we can do kind of a live chat type thing at one of the meetings.
That'd be a great idea.
I can bring the portable digital audio recorder. We
I
can
like
do a live
that.
chat.
Okay.
Or not, not live with the audience, but obviously just a bunch of people sitting around talking. But yeah, so there is no short answer, but we have kind of covered this on some other episodes. So check out episode 28. Check out episode 35-ish. I'm usually better at knowing off the top of my head what episodes are what, but it was episode 35-ish on how to be a sexual dominant, and that was a 2-part. Mm-hmm. And do you have anything else specifically that you would like to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. I'm very happy for her, because if it's something that you really enjoy, and if you can, like you said, strike while the iron's hot, I'd go for it. And
again, and it's obviously he isn't going to be listening, because she said this is not the kind of format that helps him. But for other budding dominants out there, or other inexperienced dominants, and also to all the submissives or those who want to be submissives, it can be a real psychological struggle for anyone to take the reins as a dominant for the first time. Because the fact that you are the dominant implies that you are supposed to know what to do. And if you don't have the experience to teach you what to do, you have to have some kind of a resource. And obviously, because of the existence and preponderance of the sexual dark age, those resources are not necessarily obvious.
Right. I agree.
So it can be a real struggle for newbie dominants. And sounds like you're already giving him good support. And of course, encouragement is great. And enjoying the spankings, whippings, and ass fuckings is certainly puts you on the road to success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe they need a trip to Vegas in January, like the 16th to the 21st.
Yes, if you happen to be in Vegas between January 16th and 21st, let us know, because I'll be happy to sit down for a beer with them and we can talk all about it.
We could just bump into you accidentally. No, just to be around that whole scene is kind of a whole excitement for yourself. If he's really getting into certain things, it might be something that he'd really enjoy, something to think about, because the flights and the rooms are not that bad right now for that.
Yep. So the 2 books are Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns, and The Loving Dominant. And there will be links to those on Amazon in the show notes, whether you buy them from Amazon or not. At least you can go there, get the ISBN, and see exactly which books we're talking about. But yeah, both of those books are very highly regarded in the community as excellent newbie resources. Mm-hmm. So that was the last of our questions. We've still got a few minutes here, but there are a couple of topics that we're going to touch on also. A couple of fun real-world items. First off is, I know not everyone listens to every single episode. We mentioned for the first time last week that I have a training method for female submissives that I developed for Shara, and it has been very successful in essentially giving her machine gun orgasms.
I'm not complaining. Yes.
I believe it is factually accurate to say you are having a constant chain of orgasms from the time I stick my dick in you to the time that I finish.
I would say you're correct. What can I say?
She also tends to have constant strings of orgasms while she's blowing me.
I can't help it.
And a variety of other sex and non-sex related activities.
Okay, I just have to say, I just have to say, to stick up for myself, I'm sure there are other submissives out there like me. So please, write in.
Well, what are you talking about sticking up for yourself? You won the fucking lottery. Why do you got to defend yourself?
I'm not really defending myself. I'm just kind of saying, I know I'm not the only one out there.
No. So to get to the point, I am at the moment collecting names, and I'm trying to set up a case study. So hopefully we can get somewhere between a half a dozen and a dozen well-established kinky couples with a female submissive. Could be a male dominant, could be a female dominant, doesn't matter.
Right. And we've already had some responses.
Yes, we've already had a couple people asking questions, which is great. We have a couple people who are very scientifically minded asking questions, which is always a bonus. But it is important to say that what I'm trying to do here is refine this process to make it as good as it can be and as accessible to dominance in general as it can possibly be, and also make sure that it is not some fluke. And I am absolutely certain that it is not some fluke, but I do not have data to show me that it's not a fluke.
Me too, but if I end up in the Guinness Book of World Records, well, so be it.
Well, yeah, most orgasms in a day, I think, if they're there's a category for that. If anyone's aware of a category for most orgasms in a day, we would like to put her up for it. But yeah, so this is a training method from a kinky standpoint. I don't want to go too much into it because we don't want to create a situation if someone is listening and their dominant ends up participating with us, or they as a couple end up participating with us. We do not want there to be pressure to succeed. We don't want, we want to reduce the chance of false positives. Regardless, the entire training process is going to be full of orgasms for the submissive.
Right. What a tough break that would be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, win or succeed or not, you win.
And I'll be there to hold her hand.
Well, actually, that brings up one of the questions that was asked, and I didn't clarify this. Certainly I want for the first round at least to be able to have face-to-face meetings with the dominants. I don't necessarily have to meet the submissives in person, but I would like to have face-to-face meetings with the dominants so I can properly explain all this stuff. So we are looking for people who are willing to, either in the Metro Detroit area or are willing to be in the Metro Detroit area a couple of times so we can get this kicked off properly. We are trying to do some actual science here. So, as you have the opportunity to do this, we're going to ask you to do some record keeping. We're going to ask you to sign a non-disclosure agreement with us. So we're trying to do this as scientifically properly as we can to get some valuable data and hopefully, bring a new improved female orgasm to the entire world. Because I think if I have to go down in history as somebody who did something, making the female orgasm more accessible to women is something that I will take.
I think that's a good plan for you. I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah. So if this does sound like you, if you are in an established kinky couple and you have a female submissive who would like to have a whole lot more orgasms.
Oh, let me see if they'd raise their hands.
Yeah. And you are willing to devote some playtime to it a couple times a week to try out my method in the privacy of your own home, and then keep some records and report back, I think we may be able to improve your sex life.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that...
What are you drooling?
I can't help it. I'm sorry. I wiped it off.
So another thing we want to make sure we mention a few times is that, as you have said, we are going to be in Vegas from January 16th to January 20th January 16th to 20th in 2014 for the AVN show, or the Adult Entertainment Expo, as it is more properly called. So we're going to have some fun out there. We're going to be doing a meet and greet. We've already gotten some interest from people in the audience who live in the Vegas area or live around the Vegas area. And if you are interested in getting together with us for probably like a couple of Friday evening drinks or, Saturday morning brunch or something like that, let us know who you are and when you're going to be around Vegas. We're going to be staying at the MGM Grand. And depending on the kind of responses we get, we'll kind of try to set something up that works for everybody.
Right.
And also, Shara, as she mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, again in Metro Detroit, runs a submissive support group, basically, and not, you say support group and it sounds like abused people, but it's not. It's it's more like I don't know. Well, you talk about it.
Well, it started off more as just a gathering of submissives that actually started off much like our story earlier, where just the constructive criticism situation and needing somebody to talk to and without getting in trouble from their dominants. So the dominants are very comfortable with us meeting, and the submissives are comfortable because they know everything stays right where it's at. It does not leave the area unless we all agree. Like if somebody was going to come up with a situation and they'd say, you can discuss it with your dominants and see what they have to say, what's their input, because then we bring it back to the group and discuss that, and it really is very helpful. So
yeah, it's a good tool for people.
It is, and the group is open. We do ask, like I said, for privacy, and you do not have to use your real name when you're coming in. So you can give us your name that you use as a submissive if you want to do that. You do not have to give your real name. We just ask that you, keep things private in the group as the submissives, respect each other.
Yep, and it should be said that while Shara is my slave and she does run the group, I do not run the group. This is someplace where I have some specific and carefully constructed distance. I am available to the group as a dominant to ask for opinions, but I'm certainly not at every meeting. I am not intimately involved in the running of the group, so I'm just kind of a resource.
Right.
But it is important to say that anything that is asked of me in this setting is kept in absolute confidence. I don't care who's asking.
Right. And, I did warn you that the submissives are probably going to want you in the February group because they know we're going to be gone in January. So the February meeting. So yes, it strictly is a submissives only situation to let down your hair and say what's on your mind. And sometimes everyone's having such a great month that nothing really happens other than us sharing some fun stories. So
and there will probably come a time in 2014 when I look to start up a similar group for dominance for actually some of the reasons that have been mentioned in this show. It is very easy as a dominant to feel very isolated. And the same does go for submissives. But I think submissives, by their nature, are a little bit quicker to ask for help.
Right.
Is we dominants, as a part of our nature, tend to we wish we already knew it all, and we're not the quickest to admit that we don't.
Right.
Is probably the best way.
And I also think that the submissives are a little bit more open to times and meeting where dominants, for some reason, it's a little bit more difficult for them to get together. Yeah. I've noticed that at a lot of different munches that we've gone to as well, that the submissives are a lot easier to attend at a longer period of time than the dominants are. But anyway, so it's a great group. And if you're interested, you have my email, and you can reach me on Facebook or FetLife, any of those.
jvshara@gmail.com.
That's it.
And so to recap real quick, we have an orgasm improvement training that we are currently looking for kinky couples to participate in a case study. Somewhat formal, not totally informal, but not terribly formal either. And I have not yet named that project, but I think everything's better with a snappy name. I am considering Operation Freegasm, but I have not decided
I like
yet.
that. I'll think about it, but I kind of like that one.
I'll have to consult Google and make sure someone isn't already using that for something. We have our trip to Vegas,
I can't wait.
We would be happy to meet and greet any and all listeners of the show. And we also have Shara's submissive support group here in Metro Detroit. So
which and just our February group is going to be towards the end of February. And somebody emails me or Facebook or whatever, I will get you the date and the time and the meeting place. And like I said, you're probably going to be at that one unless I have an overwhelming response of people that say, yes, I want to join in. And
if it's a whole bunch of new people, you're probably going to want to.
Well, they might want to meet you. So I'll leave that open. I'll suggest it, but if not, then we'll have you come to the March one. But please feel free to let us know if you want to join in. We're more than happy to add more people into the group, because we believe that if we can be helpful, or you might have some ideas that would be helpful to the submissives, please share with us.
All right, so it is that time again. We are all done with the show.
Oh, it went kind of fast today.
It did.
It did.
So, to the audience, as always, guys, please feel free to join the conversation by posting anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing jvalteros@gmail.com, or jvshara@gmail.com. Especially, we are trying to build up likes for our Facebook page so we can kind of increase our credibility for the interviews and stuff we want to ask for during the AVN Awards. Or during the AVN Expo, I should say. And if you are inclined and an iTunes user, good ratings and reviews on iTunes are very much appreciated. They give us a lot of weight, and we are just back from a huge extended hiatus, and we are still hanging around in the top 10 on iTunes quite a bit, so that's nice.
I know. And also, I wanted to tell you, I forgot to mention this to you. Somebody did write me and ask if they could create another name on Facebook to like the page. And I didn't know if that counted.
Oh, yeah, no, certainly. Yeah, and we actually are seeing more and more people doing stuff like that, or maybe it's probably always been like that and we're just noticing. But a lot of us have vanilla accounts,
right,
and then, kinky accounts, because you don't necessarily, if you're friends with your grandma, you might not want to like a page like ours.
Right. So, yes, absolutely. Create a different name. Confirm us as a friend. We, are very open to that, because, unless we see somebody abusing it, we accept all new
certainly. And
friends.
it may be against Facebook's terms of service, but Mark Zuckerberg's dog has a Facebook page, or
Right,
Facebook account,
right.
so
Yes,
your kinky side can have a Facebook account, I think.
I know many people that do, so I'm not worried about that. But if you want the privacy and you want to be able to feel free and you want to like the page so that we can get the counts in, then please feel free to. It's absolutely yes, it's okay, and we will confirm you as a friend.
Okay, so that just about does it.
Well, it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. Let me see those titties.
Okay.
Oh, your titties enjoyed it too.
They did. They always do.
Yeah, I think you need some attention.
I do. I always do that. Let's go practice.
Hey, you got it. I think you got some homework to do. And we haven't had a chance to give the listeners any homework in a while, but I am conscious of that, and I do still get emails from people who are enjoying the initial homework assignments.
I think.
And it's, as lastly, before we sign off, it is worth saying, because we haven't mentioned this in a while, there are times that we cover the same kind of topics over and over again, but our format has changed and evolved since we started the show. So there is a lot of very good information in the earlier episodes of the show that might not ever come up again. So if you were a newer listener and you haven't listened to any of the early episodes, you might want to check them out and see if the topics are anything that you would be interested in.
I agree.
So other than that, this is JV and Shara reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, that there is always room for better.
Always.